and welcome to the Aspire Higher podcast. Your host, Dave Glaser. We provide personal trainers with simple solutions to build a business, master online training, and eventually open their own studio. Our goal is to share business systems, marketing tools, customer service strategies to help you build a business quickly so that it can be sustained long term.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Aspire Higher podcast. I'm honored to be joined from Australia, Mr. Kane Patterson. How are you?
I'm good, Dave, and you?
I'm fantastic, man. So you host the Skinny to Strong Fit podcast, and your story is truly unique and inspiring to me. So let's get to know you a little bit. Go ahead, tell us your background story really quick, and that way our audience can get to know you better.
Do you want sort of a gloss over of everything? Because we could be here for a while.
I've got the time if you've got the time.
So the best and easiest way to explain my childhood and my upbringing and stuff like that is it's something that you would usually see in a book or in a movie. A lot of people don't believe me when I tell them. When I was first born, I was born a heroin baby. So pretty much my mum was taking a lot of substances, mainly heroin, through her pregnancy. And when I was born, I went through withdrawals from heroin. My brother was the same. All through my childhood, from about the age of 1.5, we were in and out of foster care. You're in the States, yep?
We are, yeah.
Is it called foster care over there?
Yeah, I would say that's pretty similar to what we have as a system here. My nephew was adopted from foster care system here.
Yep, cool. That's good to hear that he was adopted. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. His own challenges and struggles, but now that he's in cross country and lacrosse and swimming, he's kind of settled down a little bit.
Awesome, that's good.
Yeah. So you and your brother were in foster care?
Yeah, so all my siblings have been in foster care. Unfortunately, because of my mum's own addiction and her own problems that she goes through, she couldn't look after us, and we got taken off her quite a lot. So we would either go into some sort of short-term placement or maybe a bit longer placement. So short-term placement here is anywhere from a couple of days to weeks or months, whereas long-term placement would be a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And then she would either overdose when we went back with her, or she would assault someone or commit a crime or whatever she did, because she had her own problems going on. And then we would get taken off her again and put into a new home, new school, new friends. And yeah, it wasn't, at the time, it was just life. That's what it was. I didn't really understand what was going on. And it wasn't until later in life where I sort of became a bit older and realized what was going on and what was happening. And it started to affect me in ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you went through your own experience. At what time did your drug use or alcohol use begin in your life?
So I started drinking and let's call it experimenting with drugs. Nothing too hard. It was only marijuana. Every now and again, I'd have, a toke on a joint or whatever it was, or a few beers here and there, but nothing too serious. Around about the age of 15, 16, I got my first taste of hard drugs. My mum gave me some speed. I was just standing in the kitchen talking with some friends, and yeah, she just came up and was like, "Hey, here you go, try this." And I sort of, at the time, I was like, "Yeah, okay, cool, let's go." But looking back on it, I was like, the thought wasn't really in my head whether to have hard drugs or not. But now that it was put in front of me by someone that, is meant to love me and care for me and stuff like that, the thought was put in my head. It was put in front of me, and I took it. And yeah, it quickly, I started to really like it. and it took a hold of me. So,
Yeah, that sounds a lot like some generational addiction patterns being basically predisposing you to your first taste of it becoming kind of like embedded or enthralled in your life. Sound about right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm a jujitsu athlete, and I've been watching a lot of The Kingdom. It's on Netflix. You know, we're still sheltering in place here in Denver, but it's a
You're
little
in
looser.
lockdown as well?
I wouldn't call it lockdown, just shelter in place is recommended.
Okay.
I get to the park every day. I have been seeing some friends, like my small group from church, and there's 10 of us that meet up every other week, small things like that, hosting my birthday party. But The Kingdom is a hell of an example for people to watch on like what codependency and drug use from generation to generation looks like. So
Okay.
not sure if you've seen it or not.
Well, I haven't, but I will definitely give it a look. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an excellent portrayal and into the MMA world, but also into what happens when mom was a drug user and then dad got custody, and then dad is an alcoholic, and then the
Oh,
boys
no.
become a product of their environment. So
Yeah.
back to you though, Kane. So at 15 or 16, your mom gives you your first bit of speed, and then what?
Uh, it started out as fun, and it was something that I enjoyed doing, and it was sort of something I did in a social environment. I was like any teenager at that age, experimenting with drugs. I thought I could control it. I thought I was in control. I knew, I was telling everyone I could stop whenever I wanted, but I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
It was taking a hold of me very fast. And it got to the stage where me and my mum would have a lot of arguments because we were both dealing drugs, and either I wouldn't give her some, or the living environment wasn't very good. I think there was a little bit of resentment and hate coming from me because I was at a stage in foster care where I was old enough to make my own decisions, whether I go back with her or not. And I chose one more time to sort of trust her and move back in with her because it looked like things had changed.
Uh-huh.
But unfortunately it hadn't. It was just a front. And I think there was a little bit of like, I'd been duped. I'd fallen for it again. And unfortunately, this time it had a bigger repercussion than it usually does. A lot bigger.
Yeah, that sounds really hard, man. So were you playing sports or anything like that in high school, or were you just really trying to make it through life at that time?
High school was very hard for me. All school was very hard for me. When you go to a school for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and then you've got to change location and then school, make new friends, knowing very well that you could only be there for a couple of weeks and then do the whole thing again was sort of, it was hard. It was difficult and challenging. But through high school, I got bullied heaps by people that would find out that I was in foster care and I was a ward of the state, and they would, like, kids are assholes when they find out stuff like that. They just are relentless. Got bullied a lot. Didn't really apply myself at school because the way the teachers were teaching, I don't learn that way. I'm more of a hands-on person. Get me to read something, and it's like gone.
Sure.
But get me to do something with my hands and like actually like watch a video or something like that, and I can pick it up easy as. So I wagged most of high school and went and played golf. I got really good at golf to a stage where I was starting to play in amateur tournaments, like amateur professional tournaments. But unfortunately, I made that bad decision to move back in with my mum, and I kick myself every day for that.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Hindsight is 2020. Was there a person who had influence in you getting into golf? Were they a caregiver or a person from school?
So all through my childhood, there was two figures in my life that were like stable. They were always there, no matter where we went. They were there as well, and that was my nan and pop, or grandma and grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, all through childhood, they were the solid. I still look at my nan and my pop as my mum and dad, as like my father and mother figure, because they taught me a lot. They always looked after us. They always cared for us. There was never any doubt that they would be there if stuff went wrong. Whereas for my mum, it was like, there's a 95% chance if shit hits the fan, she's not going to be here. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
Back to that hate and resentment. Now that you're talking about your mom again, was it hate and resentment that was out of control for you, or did you feel like, I don't know where this is coming from, I can't explain why I don't like my mom so much?
I knew where it was coming from because of what had happened through our childhood and everything that had impacted my life even before I started taking drugs. So they'd been a big part and a massive role of what had happened to me previously in life, but I hadn't actually taken them yet. And there was that hate and resentment to her then. And then as I went through my addiction, I blamed her a lot for the events that started happening. It wasn't until later in life that I realized, yes, she influenced my decisions, but it was then me who let it get that bad, or yeah.
Yeah, it was because of what you were being taught that was okay and acceptable in your house.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, super hard. Thanks for sharing that part of the story.
Yeah.
And how long would you say that you battled the addiction? Were you always living at home with mom, or did you eventually leave your childhood home?
I wouldn't say we had a childhood home. There was lots of different childhood homes. So when I moved back in with her, and after she introduced me to drugs, things got out of control in the house quite a lot. There was a lot of different people coming into the house to deal drugs, take drugs, do everything like that. And it got to a stage where me and my mum would argue a lot. We would end up in fights. One of us would end up in a hospital. And then it all exploded and we ended up in this massive fight because I wouldn't give her any drugs. And she ended up chasing me down the street with a meat cleaver. And like, I don't think I've ever ran so fast in my life. But that's just who she is. She's that kind of person. She's not someone who does things by halves. And that was my sort of first experience as a teenager being homeless, sleeping on the streets at that stage. A couple of friends would let me stay on their couch and stuff like that. But it was it was a bit scary at first because it was very uncertain of what was going to happen or where I was going to be. Was I going to be sleeping at a park tonight, or was I going to have a couch to crash on? Or a bit scary.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I haven't been there before, but your unique story and sharing it with our audience is one of the reasons that we brought you here today. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
And how long did that go on for before you found fitness and nutrition as a transformation in your life?
So there were stages through my addiction where I was really bad. And then there were stages where I wasn't as bad and I was trying to quit. Through the whole 10, 11 years where I was an addict, this was sort of like a roller coaster of, I'd get really bad and then I'd be like, oh my God, I want to get better. I want to try and quit. I want to try and do the right thing, become a normal member of society. and then something would happen or something would go wrong, and I would just go back down into the rabbit hole. There were stages of homelessness all through that period, where I was either finding somewhere to sleep that was out of the elements, or sleeping on a mate's couch, or, you know, a family member would let me stay with them for a couple of weeks or something like that. Yeah, it was a lot of dark times through then. And I sort of, I laugh about it now, but it's more of a awkward laugh. Like, I don't know how to really react to it, or yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah.
No, that's totally understandable. I'd be the same way.
Yeah, cool. That makes me feel better knowing that.
Yeah. Did you try to find any type of job or employment during that 10 or 11 years?
Jobs were very hard to hold down. It was either I was on something and wasn't going to work, or I was coming down off something and like was feeling like crap, so I didn't go to work. Yeah, there was, towards the end of my addiction, there was someone who gave me a job plastering. Now a very good mate of mine. I was best man at his wedding. He gave me a job. I didn't turn up on Mondays for, I think, about 2 years, and he still kept me on.
Okay.
Like, he knew, which is pretty good of him. Like, it's excellent.
Yeah.
And he knew, like, I was straight up with him. I'm like, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm trying to do. There's going to be days where I just don't turn up because I'm either off my head or I'm not feeling too good, yeah, he kept me on for 2 years, even though every Monday it was pretty much guaranteed I wasn't going to turn up. So, yeah.
Well, what are some ideas of why he would choose to keep believing in you?
I don't know. I don't know why he would. There was obviously something there, but your guess is as good as mine and why he kept me on.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I probably wouldn't have.
Sure. That makes sense. I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
What was the turning point in your personal life or professional life that really helped you kick the addiction?
So there was a lot of things leading up to my decision to get better. I couldn't hold down a job. You know, I was eating every third day or something like that. So I wasn't very well nourished. I was extremely skinny when I first tried to quit. And then I was homeless. I was living on mates' couches or on the streets. There was just all these things building up. But the one pivotal moment that sort of my snap point was that I was out at a club and I hadn't met one of my friends, my very good friends, for a couple of weeks or months or something like that. I hadn't seen him for a while. And we ran into each other at this club, and I was extremely drunk and high. Can't remember anything from the 3 or 4 days that I was partying, except for this one moment in this club with music blaring. It was very loud, but I can remember what he said clear as a bell. And he turned around and I was like, hey, Kenna, how you going, man? Nice to see you. I haven't seen you for a while. And he just turned around and he's like, I don't want to hang out with you anymore. You're getting too bad and you're scaring me. And sort of at the time I was like, oh yeah, whatever, and blew it off and didn't really care. But then when I came to, it was the only thing that I can remember. And I've spoken to a lot of people about this and tried to get an explanation on why I can only remember that moment. And a few people are like, well, maybe it was your subconscious just going, you have to remember this moment. It's very important. Like it's going to determine where you go from here. And because when I grew up, I never really had family around me. Like even my brothers and sisters, we got split up in foster care. So friends that I made sort of become like my family, really close to me. And for one of my best friends to turn around and say that, it sort of, yeah, just it started the ball rolling. And it wasn't like when I tried to quit in the past and this was like, okay, I have to do this. It's not a matter of I want to or I need to. It's I have to.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. It sounds as if your friend did you the biggest favor of your life by maybe showing you for the first time in your life what a boundary was, what a healthy boundary was.
Mm-hmm. The weird thing is, he can't even remember it. And I'm like, man, I remember it clear as day. And I talk to him about it all the time, and he's like, I can't remember it, man. I'm like, why not? Come on.
So you guys have spent some time repairing the relationship and you communicate now?
Yeah, now we do. We didn't speak for, God, for 3.5, 4 years. I think it was around that time. And once I finally got off everything and I stopped drinking as well, I went and did my personal training course, and he came and did it with me. So we did it together.
Oh, wow.
Which
Cool.
was
all right.
Which was very cool.
Yeah. So yeah, walk me through eventually quitting and taking back ownership of your life, and then deciding how you wanted to pursue personal training as a career.
Cool. So my recovery took me ages, took me about 3.5 years to finally get off everything. I didn't go to any rehab centers or anything like that. That's not to say there's heaps in Australia that you can go to, but I've always been that kind of person through my childhood. If something goes wrong, I sort of fix it myself. I've learned to work my way through things. So at the start of my recovery, I started trying to do everything at once. Like I tried to quit everything at once, and it would always just blow up in my face. It's like someone going from eating a lot of crap food to changing their diet in one day and trying to sustain it. It just doesn't work, man.
Yeah, human psychology doesn't work very well. Not that way.
No,
Cold turkey is tough, you know.
Yeah. What I tried doing that for about just over 6 months, and it kept blowing up in my face, and I would go even harder on the drugs when I did fall off it. So after I realized that this wasn't working for me and that's not going to get me to where I want to be, I went through a process of just reducing the amount of drugs that I would have, or not having them on the weekend, or not having them this day, or, not having a certain drug. It was just trying to reduce the amount that I had. At the start, it was kind of hard, but about 1.5 years away from finally quitting, I started going to the gym, and that made things heaps easier. I had gone to the gym with friends before going with my brother this time, and it never really grabbed me. It was sort of like just stuffing around, doing the bro workouts, just sort of trying to throw as much weight around as you can. Look cool.
6 reps, and then you take 4 minutes of break. And
yeah, pretty much. But when I started going with my brother, it still took a couple of weeks for it to really get a hold of me and take me. But I was extremely weak when I first started, ridiculously weak. This skinny little twig trying to lift weights was, and not to mention the other guys in the gym were intimidating because they were all big and strong, and I was like this little 6-year-old looking guy walking in. Yeah.
Most likely feeling some ridicule and some eyes on you and some disbelief, lack of support. Yeah.
Thankfully, my brother dragged me, probably kicking and screaming at that stage, to the gym. As soon as I started eating what I thought was healthy food back then, and started eating a little bit more, I started feeling stronger in the gym. Things started clicking, and then that's when it took a hold of me, and I started going to the gym heaps, every day, multiple times a day. It became my new addiction, and it was slowly becoming more important than going out and getting high and everything. And it was still giving me the high that I was chasing, but it was just a different high.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Yeah, like a replacement behavior. We were replacing a negative with a positive, but
Yep.
still it becomes like a sanctuary and a safe place,
Yep.
and addictive in a good way. Like, we're not necessarily gonna negate somebody who goes to the gym 2-a-days, because that
Yep.
fits a certain type of athlete. So
Yep.
we're not knocking a 2-a-day or a 3-a-day, especially if it helps us kind of feedback. Like, okay, well, I get one win today, I get another win
Yep.
tomorrow, and a win the next day. And you mentioned in there that the nutrition was like a key difference maker for you.
Definitely. It was amazing once I started eating. As I said, I thought it was healthy nutrition back then. Once I started actually eating food and then slowly increased the amount of food I was eating, I started performing better in the gym, and I could work out harder, which in turn made me hungrier. And it happened quite quickly that I went from eating, 1 or 2 meals a day to eating 6 to 8 meals a day. And it was over the space of probably about a year that I really increased the size that I was eating, and then increased the amount of workouts I was doing, and increased everything there. Started feeling good, except for DOMs. They killed me.
Okay. Yeah.
They were intense.
Sure. Yeah. Delayed
Yeah.
onset. That's a real thing.
Oh yeah.
It's really tough to prevent as well.
I still suffer from it now, like big
Mm-hmm.
time. Yeah. I walk
Mm-hmm.
around like a cripple sometimes.
Sure. Jiu-jitsu does that to me. Now that we're back into the gym 3 days a week, our jiu-jitsu school, thankfully, has been doing a good job of keeping everybody safe. I'm not currently working out at a gym location. I have dumbbells here at the house, and then my training partner and I, we choose to go to the apartment gym with one cable machine, one rower, and a bench. So I've got some kettlebells coming on Wednesday to add into the repertoire.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That'll be
Finally.
good. That'll open things right up for you.
That's right. A bunch of functional movement there, and a lot of mobility that can be done with kettlebells versus dumbbells and cable machines. So, so you started working out consistently, and what was the time frame of your workout regimen pairing with the desire to become a personal trainer?
So I worked out for about a year and a half, still as an active drug addict, and drinking through that stage as well, because as I reduced the amount of drugs I was taking, I increased the amount I was drinking, because alcohol was never really my vice. It was like something I did as a social thing, or whenever I was high. But as I reduced the amount of drugs I was taking, I started getting a lot of shakes. Sure. And I had really bad dreams at night, like really vivid dreams. And that was something that sort of helped me cope with those things. Trying to be a plasterer and like trail straight lines when you've got shakes going on is kind of hard. Yeah. There was a few very wonky lines, and my boss was like, "What the hell's going on?"
But I bet he saw some improvement over that time frame too, of like showing up more frequently, owning more stuff at work, and I started
turning up on Mondays.
And you're a totally different person to him.
Yeah.
No, I see why he stuck with you for so long. Yeah, I can relate to the shakes, because when I first started building my business 9 years ago, I had an overlap of bartending at night, where we were encouraged to taste beer and try beer and drink on shift, and working until 2 or 3 in the morning, and then encouraged to have drinks after work as well as a team. Yeah. And I would have 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. clients the next day, and I'd get maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of sleep, and I'd wake up with the shakes. Yeah. And what I couldn't connect the dots of, just out of denial back then, is that like, it wasn't the volume of alcohol that I was drinking, because it wasn't an excessive amount. I still had a 5-minute drive home or whatever. But what it was is just the alcohol period for me and the lifestyle choices that I had at that time of, okay, why are you working until 2 a.m. and then trying to make it to a 5 or a 6 a.m. session the next day?
Yeah.
Like, you're killing yourself, Dave, you know?
The lack of sleep as well would run havoc. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and still trying to put workouts in there too. I couldn't work out until 2 or 3 in the afternoon because because I'd have a full client load in the mornings.
So when I first started PTing, I was working 12-hour days, and I was catching a train into work for about an hour and then a train home. And I'd probably get about 6.5 hours sleep a night. Still quite a lot, but I was burning the candle at both ends. And it got to a stage where I started increasing my training to try and compensate, because I wasn't making the best food choices because my head just wasn't in it. And then I got to a stage where, once again, through my life, I hated myself and what I'd created and everything in my business. I started to hate something that had been a pivotal tool in my recovery. Did you ever get to that stage?
Oh, absolutely. There were probably the second summer that I was in business, I started to have that reflection back on me of like, you're not doing enough. You're not good enough. You're not going to measure up in this industry. It was probably 12 or 13 full months into my business. And I was pretty close with a couple of my clients. They believed in me from the start. And I went to them and I said, I don't feel good about what's going on in my body, and I don't like the way that my body looks. And I got feedback at that time from a very influential client of mine. And she said, Dave, you gotta be conscious of what you say around your clients, because if you're dealing with it and you have 8% body fat, imagine what we're going through right now I work mostly with female clients. Imagine what we're going through at 20% body fat, So I started to connect the dots that second summer that I was in business. And I started to understand that my anxiety and depression was negatively impacting my business. And the alcohol that I was just describing, that lifestyle and the pattern of working nights and then mornings, was also negatively impacting my self-image, my belief and confidence in my business. And so that from that summer on, I started to be more transparent about how exercise and nutrition was for me, how I battle anxiety and depression.
Mm-hmm. Was it like, so when you started being open about it, was it a big weight lifted?
Oh, it totally lifted off of my shoulders. I think I was seeing somebody that spring, and then we broke up over summer, and then we got back together in fall. And I felt that transparency and that vulnerability that I led with amongst my clientele and amongst my friends who read this really influential blog post that I wrote about the top 10 reasons why exercise and nutrition positively impacts mental health. I wrote this blog post and I started sharing it, and it just made a huge change in my perspective, but also my clients' attraction and gravitation to me and to what my purpose was in this world.
That's cool. Very cool.
It hasn't been easy, but
definitely not. When I was working with my trainer and we first talked about my past and I opened up to him, he said to me, "You've got to write about this and put it on Facebook and put it out there for people to read." And I was like, "Nah, no way, not doing it." I fought him for a while, and then eventually I wrote about it and I put my transformation photos with it, and it blew up. I had to turn my Facebook off for like 3 days. But once I sort of did it and I was writing about it, how much it sort of freed me from the control that life and my mum also had over me was amazing. It was like, yep.
Yeah. And I definitely was surprised by the feedback that I got, the positive feedback of my clients and then other people on Facebook just saying, Dave, you're not alone. I feel the exact same way because of this and this and this. And one of my favorite authors, Brene Brown, says that shame cannot live in the presence of empathy. And empathy for me is something that it's a learned skill. Like we don't always necessarily innately know how to be empathetic to other people.
Yep.
But that was the first time in my life that I felt others' empathy for my situation, because I was pretty tight-lipped about it up until that point.
Cool. That's very cool. I struggle to be empathetic a lot. I don't know why, but it just, yeah.
Sure.
It's a struggle for me.
I totally understand that. We were
Yeah.
not necessarily given that emotion as children. We grew up in a disciplinarian household, a very fair household, and a very on the surface loving, but that depth and that empathy, it just wasn't there. So learning that communication as a business owner and as a personal trainer later on in my life of like, oh, I totally understand you're not reaching your goals as quickly as you want to. I totally understand that. I'm here to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one hard thing that for personal trainers that we want to just jump in there and boots on the ground and fix, right? We want to fix everything for our client. And there are times as personal trainers, we just need to have empathy for them and just listen.
Yeah, definitely.
So how'd you get your personal training business started? How did you get it up and off the ground?
So I started in a commercial gym. Once I finished my PT certification, I found it really hard to find a gym that would let me work in there. I'm very honest about my past, my history, my addiction and everything. And when I would talk to a gym manager or owner or something, I would say, listen, this is who I am. This is what I've been through. This is what I've done. And most of them would be like, nah, sorry, mate. go try someone else. And once again, I got a pretty good break from a very good friend of mine now, Jose. Let me in. He's like, yeah, come, let's have a chat. Let's have a talk and see what we can do. And I went in and it's kind of a funny story. Our interview we had, the first time I ever met him, I walked in. I'm like, oh, hey, how you going, Jose? Good to meet you. How long is this going to be? I've got to go to the police office down the road and sort some things out. And he's like, that's not how you start an interview. I'm like, just being honest, like it's important that I get this stuff sorted out or else, worse things are going to happen. So, but he gave me a break, took me in under his wing. I sort of became like his mentoree. And everything from there, started trying to expand my skill base, started working on my own body. I thought I was, but it ended up that I just burnt the candle at both ends and ended up getting to that stage where I hated myself again.
Sure.
But yeah, going into a gym as a new PT, I don't know what it's like in America, but I thought there would be a lot more like support and stuff here for fresh PTs that are first starting. You go through your build-up phase where they give you reduced rent and stuff like that. And then they give you some sort of upskilling, like a boxing course or a kettlebell course or something like that. But they don't delve into the, like how to talk to people, how to sell to people, how to take people through a proper transformation and stuff like that. Like, cause I'd been through my own transformation, but I'd never taken anyone else through one. So the training side and stuff like that, I was competent at, but talking to people and saying, hey, come and work with me. Like here's a direct debit form, give me money. That's the side I was like, nah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I can totally relate to that because I went to four-year university here in Denver for exercise science. I interned at the University of Denver in their strength and conditioning department, and I wanted to work with athletes. And I took 9 months off after graduation and after that internship before I even had a personal training client because I wasn't sure that I wanted to do it full time, and I also didn't want to be a hobbyist either I didn't want to just do it 2 or 3 hours a day. If I do something, I'm all in or I'm all out.
Yeah.
And so my mom was my first client, and we just started meeting up at a commercial gym, and then once a week and then twice a week. And then we got busted. And I was asked to go find, cause that's a little frowned upon. I was asked to go find something
just a little bit.
a little bit more private. And I stumbled upon a 6,000 square foot functional fitness gym here in Denver. And I walked in and I thought the same thing. You know, I would walk in, start paying my monthly rent. It was minimal, $500 a month for part-time work. And I thought I would have support, you know, from the owner and the other team. And what I found is a whole lot of scarcity mindset of like, I can't share my secrets with you because then you're going to steal my clients. Well, what I experienced in my internship was not a great experience. I was ignored and I was basically just observing for 475 hours. So I knew how not to treat people. And what I've done since then is, yes, build my business. But when personal trainers who came into this gym studio, massive building with turf and barbells and kettlebells and dumbbells, we had everything except for, you know, the bells and whistles. When new trainers came into that gym, I didn't want them to experience what I experienced. So I welcomed them into my world. Okay, Dave, we see you here 10 hours a day. How did you do it? Well, if you ask me that question, I'm going to give you as much information as you can handle. And I started by sharing spreadsheets like, hey, here's how I do an intake. I would actually demonstrate with them for an hour. Hey, here's how I do my consultation. Does that seem like something you can duplicate? And that helped me decide that my purpose in this life was to teach other personal trainers to do what I do, but better, because they were going to have that passion for it for longer. And I eventually built like an online mentorship course with videos and spreadsheets and systems that goes 8 weeks in a row. And now I'm focusing exclusively on training interns from my alma mater, Metro State, to do that in my business. So we've had 5 interns from Metro State now, and they've all gone through this mentorship program. And some have gone on to run their own multiple 6-figure real estate businesses, and others have gone on to have a hobbyist type of a part-time personal training job. But if I held back on any of that information, my purpose in life would not be reached, which is to impact more lives through fitness and nutrition for their mental health.
The PT industry, especially in like commercial gyms, is very cutthroat. Everyone, it must be just a global thing, because here in Australia, like it's very rare to find someone that is working in a commercial gym as a PT that will help another personal trainer. They're very like
mine.
I wasn't like that. Like if there was a client, like I'm not a runner, I'm not a fitness person, I'm a lifter and an eater of massive food. So if someone comes to me and they're like, listen, I want to be a marathon runner, I'm like, I can't help you. I'm not the trainer for you, but this person, that's what he does. So, you know, go see him. Or we, like when you do like meetups with the gym manager and you're trying to do like upskilling stuff, I find they don't contribute. They try and keep everything to themselves. Whereas I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing. Hey, you know, if you know a better way, let me know. I'm trying to upskill. Having a mentor though, through this whole time has been, I don't think I will ever not have a mentor as a PT. Like it's having someone there looking from the outside in that doesn't have that strong emotional connection to things is critical. Like sometimes I don't agree with what he says, but I trust him and I'm like, okay, I'm paying you a lot of money and we have a good relationship. I know that you're not going to tell me to do something that's not going to be beneficial for me. So sometimes I'm like, all right, I'll trust you and we'll do it. I don't feel confident about it, but let's go.
Yeah, I totally get that for sure. That you said his name was Jose, right? Your mentor?
That was my first mentor, and he took me through, oh God, I think it was about 2.5, 3 years of like my initial start to being a personal trainer. And then I went a little while without having a mentor. And then I started having another mentor that is a more of a niche mentor for the program that I do. And yeah, I've had, can't even tell you how long I've had Matt as a mentor. I sort of just, he's like, oh, you want to do another year? I'm like, yep, let's do it. Don't even ask me. Just sign me up.
Sure. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds like he knows what he's doing. And I understand that you want to take your business mostly online for the future so that you can be a family person or a family oriented person.
Yep, definitely. That's one of the long-term goals. We almost got there, but I'm still learning a lot of how to market myself online, because it's a lot different to being in a gym and just looking the part. Online, you've got to know how to talk to people. You've got to know how to send your message. So for someone who couldn't really read or write a couple of years ago, it's kind of hard for me to put my message out there because I can't get it from here onto paper.
Yeah, I'm the same exact way, and I have a hard time communicating what's in my head and what's in my heart about what I'm most passionate about and what I'm most knowledgeable about. I have a hard time communicating that on social media as well. But I did find that over the course of my career, my Facebook personal page has always been my best source and best pipeline.
Yep. We've got a page and a group, and we get very little engagement, but on my personal Facebook, everything happens. So
I always encourage people to stay focused on the low-hanging fruit. Where is your time best spent? And it's a Stephen Covey principle, the 80-20 rule. Spend 80% of your time on the 20% that's producing, and then spend 20% of your time on the rest of the 80%, like office work and referral marketing and paid advertising and things like that. But the Facebook algorithm is meant to keep your Facebook business page small, because otherwise you're not going to pay for their ads. So that's a big piece of the puzzle of the man holding me down, that I'm anti-establishment, anti-conformist. And I'm like, okay, well, you're not going to help me build my Facebook business page. I won't spend any time there.
Yeah. We don't do a hell of a lot there, just live feeds, and that's about it.
I will direct feed from maybe systems that are running in the background, like Hootsuite. Okay, well, I want to, give me just 1 second. I don't know why it blocks. Yeah. All right. Sorry.
That's all right.
Like, I know that I want to post this image and this message on Instagram, where we get a lot of traffic and a lot of interaction. But while I'm posting that on Instagram in Hootsuite, I can also post that same post on Facebook. So it's not costing me any extra time to be engaging in that realm. And that's the only interaction that I would have outside of my closed group on a Facebook business page. They just try to control way too much, and it doesn't feel authentic to me.
Yeah, definitely.
So specifically, you were just bringing up your niche, and Matt has been helping you dial in your niche specificity and growing your business there. Describe your ideal client for me.
Like when I first started out, like most personal trainers, I tried to go with weight loss, health and stuff like that. But being someone who has never struggled with weight, I've struggled with the other end of weight, not having enough of it. It wasn't a niche that I could sort of relate to on a personal level. I couldn't understand some of the stuff they were going through, even though now that I've sort of educated myself a lot more, there's very close similarities between both ends of the spectrum. And yeah, so over the couple of years, me and my mentor and my girlfriend, we've been sort of honing our niche down to people gaining healthy weight and doing it in a way that doesn't require supplements or heaps of pills and powders and stuff
Right.
like that, using effective training, mostly weightlifting, because it gives the right stimulus, and then using the nutrition to facilitate the growth.
Yeah, I can respect that. And we've always come at an approach, whether it's weight loss, weight maintenance, or weight gain, as a fuel for performance kind of a philosophy.
Yep, definitely.
Where quality over quantity. But I mean, if you're trying to add weight, you're definitely going to want to get some quality quantity in your system.
Definitely. It's a hard, it's exactly the same as the weight loss industry. There's a hell of a lot of noise in it. So for someone like me to come in there and say, hey, you don't need to take these supplements, you don't need this, focus on eating quality food, which will increase your appetite, and then you can eat more food over time. It sort of gets thrown to the back. Fortunately, I've gained 30 kilos of lean mass, so I can sort of put my photo up there and go, hey,
Sure.
I'm not bullshitting you. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'll definitely post your before and afters along with this message, because I think that illustration, that proof right there between who you were and who you are now, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally and financially speaking as well. There is no quick fix. There is no magic pill. It takes years worth of work, whether you want to get to your fitness goals or your professional goals.
Yeah, it's incredible how long it's taken me to get somewhere, and then the goalposts move, and I've got to try and chase that goal. And like through the whole time, there's been ups and downs. I've gone backwards and then had to rebuild. It's never a straight line like people think it is. Yep. Unfortunately, I wish it was, but
right.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, we would climb a steady incline to financial and quality of life growth and goals and things like that. But the line of entrepreneurship is more of a squiggly, winding route, and we find roadblocks and rocks that stand in our way. And then all of a sudden we move that rock and we get to a false peak, and then where there's another peak behind that. And I think that's the joy of the journey, is leaning into what we're going to experience along the way. Like I had built up my training studio. I'd owned it for 3 years, and about a year into it, I brought in 3 teammates, and I was delegating my ideal client to them as long as they were the right fit. And I was only training clients about 10 hours a week. And then one of them got hit by a car, and I didn't have a contingency plan for that. So, okay, I had to step away from the ownership role and back down into head trainer role. And I wasn't mentally or emotionally prepared for that. And my business tanked. Yeah, she's fine. She had a traumatic brain injury. She had about 28 stitches down the side of her face because she was a pedestrian, got hit by a car.
Wow.
And then haven't spoken to her since, because there was so much of a personality change that one day, the most coachable teammate I've ever had, and then after the unfortunate accident, it was just not her path to continue to create a personal training business anymore, because of, as you can probably empathize with, that we saw, or I heard her say, my purpose has changed.
Yeah.
And I was on board with like, okay, I wish you the best, because of, if I keep you here, you're going to be more self-destructive and more the ups and downs, and you won't actually heal from this traumatic experience that you had. So I'm not going to hold you back. Let me know if I can help you in the future.
Yeah, definitely. God, it's amazing how something like that can just completely change your life in seconds.
Yeah. In my business too, I lost 60,000 in revenue the next year because of because I was burning the candle at both ends, no longer the business owner. Now I was head trainer and CFO, CEO, head janitor, like just wearing too many hats in the business. So
Yeah. Working in the business, not on it.
that's correct. And
Yeah.
and now because of shelter in place, the story is that I am the business owner. I only have, how many sessions do I have? I have 7 session hours a week with clients, whether that's Zoom or we go to the park.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the time I'm working on that online strategy to help scale my business. And for the last few months, we've seen 20%, 20%, 40% revenue growth through the online systems.
Very nice. Very
Because
cool.
I'm working on the business, no longer
Yeah.
in the business. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kane, it was fantastic to bring you on and hear more about your story. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Easiest way to get a hold of me is through Facebook on our Facebook page, the Skinny to Strong podcast, or through our website, www.skinnytostrongpodcast.com. That's the number 2 in it, not
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be sure to put those links in the show notes below, and
Cool.
let me know how I can help you in the future. I'd love to collaborate again down the road. I know you're in Australia, but Zoom makes the world a really small place.
It does, especially we're in lockdown here, so it's easy to get everything done via Zoom.
Mm-hmm. We don't have another choice, and the pivoting and the transitioning and the adaptability is either going to keep us in our dream career or it's going to chew us up and spit us out.
Definitely.
Well, Kane, I appreciate your transparency and your vulnerability and sharing your story. And let me know if there's anything I can do to help you, man.
Will do. Thank you for having me on, Dave. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure, man.